Hello and welcome back to the NFL DFS slate breakdown for week 7. We got a pretty interesting week here. There is a lot of different ways to go. Only 10 games, one game with a big total, everything else pretty small total. There's going to be some decisions we have to make. And a lot of the times on these, interesting slates where nobody's really sure to go, what happens is sometimes the chalk that's not that good just gets overplayed. And with that, I think there is some edge to be had. We're going to go over that, but before we do, come join us. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything we do, all the props, all the DFS, all of it at one low price. So come join in the fun. Now let's get into this interesting slate, if you will. There is some weather issues, so make sure to pay attention on Sunday. The weather issues all look like it is going to be windy, but that does affect passing, obviously. So pay attention. Ownership-wise, we got Mahomes and Love, the two highest owned quarterbacks. I don't mind them, don't love them. Mahomes obviously could go off. Chargers D has been terrible. So I'm not going to talk anybody off of going him, but I think there are some flaws in them as a whole. And I think because I think betting markets maybe have not fully switched to this Chiefs that we're seeing this year. They have a way better defense. They don't have to put as much points up, and they're relying on the running game a little bit more. So Mahomes isn't as necessary. So I don't mind him because it is Mahomes, but I see a lot of ways this game can fail. So if he is almost 30% high owned, I'm probably not going to have very much. I will have a little, just not a ton. Jordan Love, on paper, I actually really liked this play at first. And I say at first because Denver D has been terrible. It looks like box score wise, Jordan Love has been doing really good, and he's been all right. But digging in a little deeper, I have some concerns. He has been hyper efficient with touchdowns. 6 passing touchdowns the first 2 weeks. Next 2 weeks, he had a rushing touchdown in each game. So I think his fantasy performances have been a little bit inflated. And I think the field, seeing the good matchup, seeing some past success and going to there, I think there's a very, very real shot. He only has 1 or 2 touchdowns, and just that's not likely to get it done at high ownership. And, we know he's just a meh quarterback, so we don't have to go there. He has some exciting weapons, so I do like him. I think he is like the 4th highest team total, but I don't love it. Dobbs I like. One thing I will say there is I think I would rather go Geno. If Dobbs gets there, then the Seahawks are going to have to be putting up points, and I just think Geno is the better play of the two of them. And you can get most of Dobbs' points if you just take, say, Marquise Hollywood Brown. Lamar I like quite a bit. He is one of my favorite plays on the slate at this 7% ownership. If that ownership gets up, I don't love it. Lions D has been a little bit better lately, but I think there's some real paths to success in this game. I think that the Lions could actually challenge the Ravens, and if the Ravens are forced to put up points, which they haven't really been so far this year, then I think it's very, very interesting, and Lamar would be in a situation where he could possibly break the slate. Sam Howell I really like. Nice rushing upside, has some good weapons. Giants D's, less than great, so I like going there. I really like Stafford. Now, I know last week I said he doesn't really have much of a ceiling, and he hasn't had much of a ceiling now for almost a full year of games here. But Cooper Kupp's back. He's been very, very good. And they have Puka Nacua. They have Tutu Atwell. They have Tyler Higbee. They have a lot of different ways they can go. And this running back spot is pretty interesting this week. Not really sure which way they're going to go or if they can even rely on any of these guys. And so it may just put more on Stafford's shoulders. So I think it's very interesting. He hasn't had a 3-touchdown game yet. I think there's a real shot of that. And he is one of the only guys on the slate that could go for 400 yards and say 3 touchdowns. So I think there's upside. He's low owned, not that expensive. Kind of like it. The Raiders spot, it is going to be Brian Hoyer. Nobody's going there. I think it's really interesting. You could go Hoyer, say Michael Mayer, and Adams, and get studs everywhere else. So I think that combo is interesting. It is taking a big leap though, because you are relying on Hoyer, you're relying on Michael Mayer, who just started getting involved in this offense, but there is some upside there at a cheap price. Baker Mayfield and Desmond Ridder, I like that game. Both defenses are very good at stopping the run. So if these teams stop trying to run the ball against the strength of the defense and they start throwing, their shootout potential, even though neither quarterbacks are that good, they both do have very good weapons that could break big plays and make it an interesting game. So I like that one. And then Deshaun Watson is going way overlooked. Does look like he's going to play. Colts aren't a good defense. He has good weapons. He's cheap. I like going that way. FanDuel ownership is much, much different. We have Geno, Lamar, and Mahomes, all the high-owned pieces. Now, I don't like Geno as much at 28%. The reason being is I think there's a lot of ways this game fails, and I think it is most likely to fail. I don't think the Cardinals are the Cardinals of the first couple weeks where they're hanging with good teams. I think they are who we thought they were, and I don't think they're very good. Mahomes, he has that rushing upside, so he's fine at high ownership, but I don't love it. Jordan Love, I think, is a little bit pricey over here on FanDuel. But Josh Allen, only $200 less than Mahomes, $1,000 more than Lamar. I think he's very interesting, but he hasn't had that rushing upside he normally does. And until that comes back, I have a hard time paying up there. I like Stafford, like Howell, like Mayfield. Goff is okay. Like Ridder. Those are kind of the targets I would be on over there. As far as the matchups for quarterback, obviously the Giants is a very good matchup. And we don't know if Jones is going to play. He hasn't really practiced much this week. Hasn't been approved for contact yet, which this late in the week, that's not a good thing. So it is likely to be Tyrod Taylor. And I just have worries that Tyrod's able to get this team there. Now, a lot of different receivers on there, so it's kind of a weird stacking spot. But if you can get it right, there's definitely some upside there. Mahomes, Love, Geno, Hoyer, all of which guys we have talked about and are a little bit intrigued with. So let's get over to running back now. Running back wise, Kenneth Walker, Pacheco are the two highest owned, with Evans right there. Now, I like Walker. Don't love his ownership, but running back this week, there's not a ton of options. So I think we may have to just kind of bite the bullet and go with some chalk at running back. Don't love Walker, but he is consistent, has a very high median projection, and he usually produces. Just if he doesn't get in the end zone, he's not going to do it for you. Isaiah Pacheco, I think there's more volatility in his line than Walker's. I like Pacheco. He's in a good spot. I just don't love it because, like Walker, he hasn't shown huge upside, just consistency. Rams running back spot is a total shit show. We don't know what's going on right now. It could be 4 guys, could be 1 guy. McVay generally leans on 1 guy. There's some worry that Zach Evans doesn't know pass protection. If that's the case, he's not going to play that much. So we really do not know who it is with the Rams. I am very interested in this spot, and I will be looking to see if there's more information throughout the weekend on it. But if Evans is 30%, I might go elsewhere. If he is 10, 15%, then I'll probably go there. But at the ownership, I think there's a lot of volatility, and the projection is sketchy at that point. Josh Jacobs is in a great spot. I actually thought he would be higher owned. Jerome Ford, I think, is very good. And if Kareem Hunt is not playing, he was questionable all week. I think Ford then becomes a smash play. He's in a great spot. Aaron Jones, I really do like. Just wish that we knew for sure if he was going to play or not. He is going to be in the afternoon games. And, he's going to get low ownership, but he might not play. And I think he's in a smash spot. So I like Jones, but very much pay attention to news there. Jamar Gibbs Montgomery's not playing. He's off the injury report. Craig Reynolds showed up on the injury report. Gibbs could get all the work in a decent spot versus the Ravens. And we know he's explosive, so there's interest there. Barkley is in a decent spot. Washington lately has given up some fantasy points. Barkley didn't look great last week. He did bust a couple runs to make it worthwhile, but they need him badly, and so he's at least of interest there. And then Donta Foreman, it looks like he's going to get the start. I would say he's very interesting at a cheap price. Running back wise on FanDuel, we went over pretty much everybody, so let's just do ownership. Jacobs, 35%. Jerome Ford, 33%. Zach Evans, 32%. Pacheco, 32%. Kenneth Walker, 28%. Those are all the best-looking plays on the slate. FanDuel-wise, I would be looking at Aaron Jones to get different. Eckler can always do it, but I just don't love this spot for him, and I think he's a little overpriced, and if I'm going to pay that amount for anybody, I want to go Kupp instead of Eckler. Barkley is obviously interesting. Jonathan Taylor, his role keeps growing. If it grows again, even if a tough matchup at his price, he's interesting knowing his upside. Brian Robinson is interesting at his price as well. And matchup wise, Aaron Jones is the best matchup. Getting low ownership. Very interesting play. Javonte Williams. He is interesting. He's in a good spot. I do worry about workload. He hasn't topped 13 carries this year, and 6 targets is the most he's got. He would have to be super efficient, and coming off his injury, I just don't know if he is that right now. I think I'd rather Jaleel McLaughlin. Brian Robinson, Ford, Gibbs, all popping up, and Foreman's not too bad here as far as matchup tool for running back. Wide receiver wise, Kupp. I mean, he's 35% owned, but I think he is by far the most likely to go off, and I'm probably going to have a lot of them. Just, it is what it is this week. Wan'Dale Robinson, if he is 32% owned, I'm not going to have very much at all. He is at least very cheap and has a nice floor because he's going to get 5 catches, 6 catches. I just don't know if he's going to break the slate for you, and that's the issue. I do like Curtis Samuel more than Robinson. A little more expensive, a little less ownership. That's an interesting play to me. McLaurin's way too cheap. In a good spot. I like it. Marquise Brown, I like it. That is a situation. If I'm playing Brown, I'm probably going to play a Seattle player as well. Just because if Brown goes off, then the Seahawks probably will as well. Keenan Allen, super expensive, very good, high ownership. He's just not this 20 target, 18 reception guy. or this 8 reception, 111 yard guy. He just doesn't generally have that ceiling. He is more of Kenneth Walker, where he is consistently good but not great weeks. And I would be so surprised if he was able to be, one of those ceiling guys this week. I like Allen. Play a little bit. I'm not going overboard with him. Drake London and Cooper, I both love. DK Metcalf is questionable, very banged up. I guess the hip is more of a problem than his ribs, and he's super sore, and he's going to be a game time decision. If he is out, makes Geno probably a little bit worse of a play. But if that stack gets there, it's going to be because of JSN and Lockett. And so it makes the stack a little interesting because there's just less places to go with the ball, or, makes those wide receivers a little interesting. I really like Mike Evans. I like Devontae Adams a lot. Watson is probably going to be a full go now. He's interesting. There's a ton of mid-range wide receivers that I like that aren't super high owned. I think this is the week that you can get different at wide receiver. And there's a lot of different ways you can go. And you don't have to eat a ton of this chalk. And so this is also why I don't mind eating the chalk at running back or quarterback, because I know I can get different at wide receiver this week. So many different ways to go. High owned on FanDuel, Puka Nacua, 35%. I can't do it. I will have some Puka. Nowhere near 35%. I will have 35+% of Cooper Kupp. He is my go-to this week on that Rams offense. Cooper Kupp can beat man. Puka struggles a little more with man. He's better with zone. And with that, I think Puka may struggle a little bit this week. I think Tutu Atwell can beat some man. So he is interesting. But, yeah, don't love Puka. Don't love it at 35% for sure. Zay Flowers, I think, is very, very interesting. He gets a ton of targets, and if the Lions push the Ravens, then you're going to need some Ravens. Watson, I like. Diggs, this isn't a huge Diggs week for me. The reason being, Patriots have been super good versus the wide receiver one. They have a rookie corner who has been just stellar, so don't love going there. Brown, Evans, Adams, I like all of them. Gabe Davis is interesting. Lockett is interesting. There are so many different ways to go to get different on this slate. Matchup-wise, Puka is showing up as a very good matchup, but if you see who's beat him, it's guys that can beat man. Brandon Ayuk is the 49ers man beater. Jacoby Myers can beat man. I mean, Adams better at it, but Jacoby can. WR1s versus Washington have crushed. Wandell just doesn't have this upside that London, Moore, Brown, Diggs do. I think that if I am going to go after this Washington secondary, I think I got to go with Slayton. He's the guy that can bust the big play and get deep. I do worry about the quarterback play, though, for it to happen. Kupp, I love. So many McLaurin's popping. Wide receiver ones have done really well versus the Giants. Metcalf, this is totally one to pay attention to because Ty Lockett or JSN could act as the one, and WR1s have beat Arizona pretty good. Amon-Ra just went nuts versus Tampa. It's now Drake London's turn. Several guys have gone nuts versus Tampa, so London's in a really good spot there. Amari Cooper, the Colts, been terrible at D. So gave it up to Ridley, gave it up to Collins. Bateman's been terrible. They did do decently. Flowers did decently. Puka Nacua went nuts. DeAndre Hopkins went nuts. Ridley finally failed this week, but Christian Kirk went nuts. I think Cooper's in a great spot. Diggs is low on this, like I said. Adams didn't do much. Olave didn't do much. Lamb, Wilson, Hill. These are all the best wide receivers in the game, and they've struggled. Diggs likely does too. Pittman struggled against Cleveland. Everybody has struggled versus Cleveland. So not a great matchup. And that is one worry with going with Watson, is just he may not have to do much. And coming off injury, they may not ask him to do much. Much tougher week for Amon-Ra this week than last week. So definitely know that if you want to click that button and chase those scores. Now, tight end wise, DraftKings, Musgrave. I mean, one of the highest game totals of the week, so no surprise there. Mark Andrews is a smash. Michael Mayer, talked about him earlier. I think he is very interesting, especially at this price. He got 6 targets last week, 3 targets the week before. He is much more involved in this offense now. They're scheming for him. He's playing more. He was a high draft pick. I very much like him in this game at this price. And you can stack. Kelsey going 7% when Mahomes is 28 is crazy to me. I think that if you take Mahomes, you almost have to take Kelsey. So his ownership should be higher, but he is in a decent spot here. Good matchup. And there is a chance that he gets all Mahomes points, so you don't even have to pay up for Mahomes. Freiermuth just got announced as out. Kyle Pitts is interesting, but I got to bring up Jonnu Smith. He is cheaper. Nobody's going there, and he's doing well. He only has 1 touchdown on the year, but yet 6 for 67, 6 for 95, 5 for 37, 4 for 47. He's consistently putting up points. He's part of this offense. I think you got to consider him there. Darren Waller, 7 targets last week, 11 targets the week before. He's getting the targets. I think it's not if, it's when he goes nuts. And he has a decent matchup here. Below this, I would probably just be kind of stacking with my quarterback. Don't mind Logan Thomas here. Laporta is fine. But, tight end is always a bit messy. And Musgrave, Andrews, Laporta, Waller, Kels, all, pretty similar situations on FanDuel here. And let's go over to the matchups. Musgrave has a great matchup. Kelsey 124, 67 for Conklin, 85 Kmet. Smythe and Hooper are the only ones that haven't done anything versus them this year. So with that, you got to kind of like Musgrave. The one thing I will say is Watson's probably going to be a full go. So he may be back to this 3, 4, 5 kind of target range instead of this 8, 7 type guy that he has seen on his, better weeks. Now, can he be that 8, 7? Yes. He has ability. He's young. There's rapport there. Just don't love following chalk. We have Hooper as the tight end 1, and he is still, because he'll block a lot. He's on the field a lot, but Mayer is the pass catcher now out of the two of them. And with that, he's got a good matchup. So interesting. Otten, very interesting. I like Tampa Bay. You could go Evans and Otten with Mayfield, and it's cheap. Could have London run back, and you have a very, very cheap 4-man in your lineup stuck there. And then you can get your studs and really kind of push after that. And I think those 4 players have a very, very high ceiling. Risky, but you're going to be different, and it's a real possibility there. Logan Thomas is nice. Waller's fine. Laporta, Andrews, Ertz, Troutman, Fant all have the worst matchups. It's interesting that Andrews is there when he's also one of the higher owned guys. And, I mean, they haven't played much at tight end, so you do have to worry about that. I mean, over the last 18 weeks, Ingram, Hawkinson, Kmet are really the only ones who've done much, and some of the better tight ends they face. So just the quality of tight end could be it, but I do believe that Andrew has a little bit of a tough matchup. All in all, real interesting week, this one. I think don't be scared to get different. I think we're going to have to get a little different with the stacks that we make. Don't mind going chalky at running back, but I think that most likely there are 1 to 2 teams that really separate themselves. And if, you're on the 2 teams that put up 30 points, you're going to be in a real, real good position. Now, I don't necessarily think it's going to be the highest, the Chargers Chiefs. I think there's 4 or 5 other games that it could be, and I'm interested in them. We don't have a very big range from the low to the high game total this week, so I wouldn't really be feeling like you got to stick to that Chiefs-Chargers game. Get different, get a little weird, and figure it out. Figure out where some leverage is. Think about how you want to build your lineups and do it accordingly. Just make up lineups with some thought, and you'll do all right. All right, guys, thank you. We'll be back next week. Have a good one. Bye.